Joan O'Brien worked as a print journalist for nearly 15 years before attending the law school at the University of Utah. So we've had two lawyers speak to us today. We could have used that in our promotional material, but I didn't realize it. And both from the U. After graduation, she taught mass communication law at the U's journalism department for 5 years. And then in October of 2013, she helped form the nonprofit organization Utah Newspaper Project, Citizens for Two Voices. The group's efforts prompted a U.S. Department of Justice investigation into the 2013 joint operating agreement between the Deseret News and the former New York owner of the Salt Lake Tribune. Utah Newspaper Project challenged the JOA itself in a public interest antitrust lawsuit that was brought to a successful resolution on May 31st. Joan is married to Tom Harvey, one of 3 reporters at the Tribune who received an anonymous tip about the deal that would have doomed Utah's largest newspaper. Joan will speak to us for about 20 minutes and then move into a Q&A session and answer any questions you have. Please welcome Joan O'Brien.
Thank you so much for this invitation. I did not know about Oasis, and I'm really impressed. And we're a secular household too, so we feel very at home here. Anyway, thank you so much. So, what I thought I would talk about is probably what I have to talk about, which is just what the heck happened. What happened last spring? What happened 3 years ago? What happened 10 years ago? What happened 65 years ago? What happened 145 years ago? The saga that sort of wrapped up a few months ago, it goes back a little. It's been 3 years since we began our struggle to save the Salt Lake Tribune, and 3 months since we've ended the legal fight when the Deseret News and the New York hedge fund agreed to sell the Tribune. But really, what happened? Did we win? Board members of our little nonprofit don't claim that, although others do, including some lawyers on the other side of the case. The most I will say is that we didn't lose. And considering whom we've taken on in this battle, that seems, not losing seems like a pretty good victory. But still, just what happened? Ever since this thing started, people have begged me to come up with some kind of pithy elevator pitch, some sort of simple explanation of what this fight was all about. And I confess I never was able to do that. The closest I came was a paragraph I wrote for journalists I was trying to pitch a story to, and I would just point out that an arm of the most powerful institution in the region had engineered a deal that doomed the largest independent news gathering operation in the region, and the community fought back. And that was something I would say to journalists in vain, because I never really could get anyone to do a story about our cause, but I never really said it here because this was all wrapped up in the unique culture that is Utah. We never wanted to be perceived as anti-Mormon or somehow bigoted that way. But at any rate, we have to go back in time a little bit, and before you make up your mind about what exactly happened, about whether we won or didn't lose or surrendered, we should probably start at the beginning. And like I said, even what is the beginning? That is almost impossible to answer simply. Was that 3 years ago when this anonymous tip was sent to 3 reporters at the Salt Lake Tribune, including Tom Harvey, who's here, my husband. The other 2 were Paul Raleigh and Robert Gerke. And the Tribune, it was the Tribune itself that broke this open, let us know, let the community know what exactly was going on. And as soon as they got their hands on the actual joint operating agreement that's referenced in the anonymous tip, it was their effort that got us the information that we needed to mount a fight of this deal. So what is a joint operating agreement? What is going on here? It kind of all starts, the situation of the Tribune kind of starts in 1870 when it was founded, roughly. It was founded, actually, few people know this, but it was actually founded by Mormons. It proclaims itself as an independent voice, but it was once briefly called the Mormon Tribune. And, but it was founded for sure as an independent voice to challenge Brigham Young. And for their trouble, they were promptly excommunicated. So it was founded as an independent, for sure, news outlet. It changed hands a few times before 1901 when it was sold to Thomas Kearns, and his family owned it for the next 100 years until 1997. But another important year is 1952, when the Deseret News approached the Salt Lake Tribune. They were having trouble keeping the Deseret News afloat, and they proposed a deal where they would combine their print and advertising and distribution operations, very expensive aspect of newspapering, and they would go into business together there, keep the editorial product separate and independent, but that they would combine their commercial operation. And that was the first joint operating agreement that they signed. That was 1952. That's how the Tribune got in with the Deseret News and kind of set the stage for what was to come later. I'm sorry about the poor quality of this. This is one of Bagley's very old cartoons. The Tribune and the Deseret News were very odd business partners, for sure. The Tribune was a little wild, and the Deseret News, of course, owned by the LDS Church. They were all very straight-laced, and the guys there saying to the Tribune guy, "You're disgusting." The Tribune guy's all drunk and okay, so now enter the U.S. Justice Department in the 60s. So combining business operations of two competing businesses is not exactly legal. And the Justice Department pointed that out in the 60s. They challenged these. There were about 30 of them around the country, these newspaper joint operating agreements. And the Justice Department challenged the arrangement as an illegal monopoly. It won, went to the U.S. Supreme Court, which agreed with the Justice Department. This was an illegal monopoly. Pooling resources, setting prices, et cetera, is anti-competitive behavior, prevented, and boy, I'll tell you, City Weekly will certainly agree with this. They feel like the arrangement held them back for their 25 years of existence. But at any rate, the Justice Department argued that it was an illegal monopoly. The U.S. Supreme Court agreed. And so the newspapers that have these started lobbying Congress for the Newspaper Preservation Act. And they succeeded in passage of the Newspaper Preservation Act in 1970. You see Nixon supposedly signing it right there. The Newspaper Preservation Act grandfathered in the Deseret News Tribune situation and allowed these as long as one newspaper was failing. The two newspapers continue to be independent, which means they cannot have any combining of reportorial operations or amalgamation of editorial staff. So the antitrust immunity is limited, which was what we were screaming at the top of our lungs for as long as we were in court. I'll just say, the two newspapers in Salt Lake, along with the others, They were loving the deal, the situation, loving the arrangement for as long as newspapers in general were making money, which they were hand over fist until 2007, when they made, which was a record time for newspapers and revenues. But then the Great Recession hit, and everything collapsed, and it's been in a free fall ever since. But in 1997, something very important happened to the Salt Lake Tribune that plays a big part of this story. The Salt Lake Tribune merged with the giant cable company TCI. It was a part owner, and helped found the company in the 50s. That's John Malone up there and Bob Magnus. And they, for a lot of reasons, some people say to get rich quick, but others say to ensure that the Tribune could continue. They merged with the giant cable company, and it unmoored the Tribune from its local family ownership, and it made it vulnerable to to take over by someone who was not the local family that had owned it for 100 years. That set the stage for our current fight, in my opinion. But we at Utah Newspaper Project, we do a little series we call The Quest, which is, it's a history of the Tribune's, well, I guess it was the history of the Deseret News' efforts to buy the Tribune the first time around, which was in the late 90s. And it came very close before it finally agreed to sell, to agree to allow the Tribune to be sold to Dean Singleton, the media mogul, who owned it right before his bankruptcy, and it fell into the hands of the New York hedge fund. So, a lot of people look at the Tribune as well. It just collapsed of its own weight. This was sort of a victimless, or, there was no perpetrator here, but really the Deseret News had played a fairly active role in putting the Tribune into its precarious position that it was in before Paul Huntsman bought it 3 months ago. So in 2013, so that's another date that's kind of pivotal in this, the anonymous tipster whose identity we never did know sent out the tip, and we started our little group immediately. The group started with email just to all the retirees of the Salt Lake Tribune, and they were pretty much the core of our organization, although thousands of people expressed support and hundreds of people donated to us. And so I really respect efforts like Rusty's, which, starting a group from ground zero is really hard. And so I really admire people who do that, because I know from our experience how hard it is. And our group started with an appeal to the U.S. Justice Department. We got a form letter back to our first letter, which basically it's safe to say we were pretty much ignored. And then we kept working at it. We wrote another letter. That one did get their attention in the following March, and they launched an investigation into the new JOA. But we got an investigation, but we were told, and we don't really run around saying this that much, but the Justice Department just said, look, we're going to investigate. They stayed very active and kept the pressure on through the whole time, but they said that we needed to go in. So, we never really ran around saying that we were acting as basically proxies for the Justice Department. That is, in fact, what we were. So we were in court, keeping the pressure on here in Salt Lake, and the Justice Department was in Washington, keeping the pressure on back there. The defendants, I think it's fair to say, never took us seriously. But they definitely took the Justice Department seriously. But it was a partnership, in my opinion. So this is what we did. We in June we got the word from the Justice Department. We got to go in. We were worried about imminent cuts, and the Justice Department said, you better go in. So this is what we did. We filed our public interest antitrust lawsuit. The antitrust laws encourage this kind of activity because consumers actually are pretty good plaintiffs in an antitrust case. They're the victims of illegal monopolies, and so they make pretty good plaintiffs, and that's what we did. We had a very able attorney in our case, Kara Porter, who we were very lucky to get. This is a little gift that we gave her last year. Bagley gave us this. The guy on the right is Clark Gilbert. He is now president of BYU Idaho, and he was the engineer. He's the one who did this deal on the Deseret News side. And Jim Back is great. Fighter for the Tribune. It gathered a number of names on a petition that he presented to the Justice Department after it launched its investigation. So we were just a grassroots group, not kind of out there, and I just it was pretty frightening 3-year period for us, but. We were, we kept at it. We really had no choice but to keep going, and so we kept at it. The guys who did the deal didn't. John Payton was fired about a year after we went into court. Of course, we don't really know what happened, but he tells people at the Tribune privately, he told people that he thought that the deal he did with the Deseret News doomed him. And we were just having fun with Clark Gilbert. There he is. There's our attorney, Kara Porter, there on the left. That's Clark Gilbert. He also was kicked upstairs to BYU Idaho. So I just, I'm running out of time. So I just want to clarify. You guys are young, and chances are you probably, may or may not take a newspaper. Part of our challenge in this whole fight was that we were fighting for a medium that everyone had already pretty much left for dead. And it was very frustrating. It's an incredibly disrupted, endangered industry, but I think people don't really understand the role of a newspaper in our society. It's not just it's not just this thing on paper that lands on your doorstep. What endangers a newspaper is the fact that it has a very, very, very large staff. Their operations are, they are by far the largest news gathering operations in any community. There's even with the Tribune, with what it's gone through, it's still got nearly 100 people gathering the news, and that makes it, responsible for the vast majority of original news gathering in this community. If you watch the TV news and it's the story, and then the next day you notice that it's in the Tribune, you think, well, chances are that the Tribune put it out on its website and TV followed it. There's just no. The Tribune has functioned, historically and currently it still does as a tip service for all the other news media in the valley. So its loss would be would have a profound effect on our marketplace of ideas here. And it goes without saying, who owns the rest of the media, the vast majority of the rest of the media. We have this one powerful institution that owns KSL, it owns all PBS through BYU, owns the Deseret News, owns really by their own profession, they have more than half of the news media platforms in the valley. So, with the loss of the Tribune, it would have a profound effect on our news gathering. So, one of these days, I would like to work on, just really finding out exactly and scientifically showing just what role the Tribune does have in the valley as far as generating news content that gets disseminated to the rest of the community. But of course, because now that it's gone over the last 10 years, its ability to play that role is hindered, and hopefully we'll see we'll see improvements with the new owner. But here Paul Huntsman is introducing himself to the staff last spring. He's a pretty tech savvy guy. He grew up reading the newspaper, but he's LDS. So that's the wrinkle in this. Did we win or did we lose? Did we surrender? What happened? We've got an LDS owner of the Salt Lake Tribune. People think that belies its claim of being an independent news gathering operation. And what's more, we also have a LDS editor of the paper now. I would submit, I would have a great deal of respect for both Paul Huntsman and Jennifer Napier-Pierce, the new editor, and I would just submit that having an LDS editor and having an LDS owner is a lot different than having the LDS church as your owner. So I still think that they can honestly claim their role as independent, and in a way I think that an LDS editor kind of knows the limits in a way that the Gentiles never did. I think that, having worked there, I think that the Tribune under Gentile editors was actually really pretty politically correct and afraid of the LDS Church, and pulled back maybe in a way that I predict that the LDS editor will not. So I've gotten my warning on the time, so I'll just stop and
take questions.
Yeah, if anybody has any questions. Like I said, I never did get that pithy explanation of the issue down, so I imagine you're still a little bit confused.
So what can the community do to continue to help it survive for the next 150 years?
Yeah, that's it. There are a couple ways that the Tribune can gain the support of the community. It has to still remain something that's worth paying for. So the community, the community, the public is used to getting their news for free now. So most people will go to the Tribune website, and if they're interested in something in particular, and then after they say, wow, what a crappy website, they'll find the story that they were looking for maybe. But they won't have paid for that. There are a couple things you can do. You can take a subscription if you want. You guys are young, so a lot of you may have never taken a newspaper subscription. The newspaper industry has an actuarial problem. If you're under my age, you probably have never subscribed to a newspaper. It's just a fact. And so it is, the industry is going to decline as that medium, but as long as the community can support the news gathering, then it'll be fine. So yeah, you could be a member of the Tribune, and you can pay in any number of ways through a membership, and access the content online, or you can subscribe to it. You can subscribe to it and read it online in a digital replica form, which is like reading a newspaper, only it's on your computer. Some people don't like that. They want a paper. We do. But basically pay for it, I guess, is what you can do. And pay attention to how much of the information that is out there actually originated with the Salt Lake Tribune. If you follow any of the BYU, Utah State issue with assault, you were reading the newspaper, whether you saw that on PSL or KTV or wherever you got that story, that you're basically reading the Tribune. So kind of being aware of that is in a way, is supportive.
I'm just curious. I've always liked John Eastman. I thought he was real in between, moderate type person. Is your brother like that?
Yeah, the family is incredibly diverse. In fact, I just got an invitation to a fundraiser for Doug Owens at James Huntsman's home. So, you know, there's this, supposedly it's a very Republican family, but James Huntsman, John Sr.'s son, is hosting the Democratic Party fundraisers. So, I think Paul is, I think Paul is, he's active LDS, but I think, he seems pretty savvy to me. We met with him, and he said some of the right things. I just wanted to point out, you reminded me that, so John Huntsman had been signaling for quite a while that he wanted to buy the Tribune. And so why did we go into court when it was just, when, there was this guy here who was ready to buy it? Well, it was never a matter. Because of the complexity of the Newspaper Preservation Act, the JOA, the Salt Lake culture, the fact that they did this deal and were not in the mood to change it, it was never a matter of just selling the Tribune. And it took them, by their own admission, it took them 15 months to get a deal sealed. Huntsman Sr., they would go up to they'd have a deal with the hedge fund, which, by the way, had to sell back some of what, they had to sell back part of the deal. Because, in effect, the Tribune was sold to Deseret News in 2013. That's what happened. So they had to sell back some of it, the hedge fund, to the Deseret News, or the Deseret News had to sell back some of it to the hedge fund so that they could have something for John Huntsman, or Paul Huntsman to buy. So that they, to get the parties to all agree to that, it took almost 2 years. And the the church, they'd have a deal, they thought, they'd go up, they'd run it up the flagpole, the church would mix it. But it had happened a dozen times. And then, what happened ultimately to make them finally agree, we don't really know, except that, the word is that they were quite afraid of the Justice Department. And in the end, our little group didn't love the deal. The deal was contingent on us agreeing to drop our litigation. The deal was contingent on the Justice Department dropping its investigation. And we didn't love it. It changed somewhat the profit split. Now the Tribune gets 40% of the profits from the combined operations. Historically, it always had 58%, but now that Deseret News owns everything. It owns the press, it owns all the real property. The other issue that was on the table in our litigation was this veto power. That was probably one of our best arguments for successfully challenging the JOA in court. And they did agree. They gave us. They relented a little bit on the, not entirely, but a little bit on the veto power. So we prevailed on 2 of the major issues that we had. We got change and movement on 2 of the main issues that we had raised in the litigation. Yeah.
What was the relationship of the church and the hedge fund? You said the church makes it, the hedge fund owned it, so what was going on?
Right, because of because they're in business together. They own the joint operation together, so they're business partners. They have a number of clauses in the contract where they have to agree. So there was that. I don't think that they had an amicable relationship, especially after they did this deal in 2013, because everything erupted immediately. But generally, they just they were just in business together in that joint operation. I think that I think the hedge fund was going to happily go away with their $25 million. That's what the Deseret News paid them for that joint operating agreement in 2013. And they were just going to happily go away for the next 5 years, let the Tribune slowly twist in the wind. And then in 2020, which when the JOA was going to expire, and by the way, it will expire still in 2020, the Tribune would be more or less non-existent, having, twisted in the wind for 5 years. There are all sorts of provisions in the JOA that, point out how it would go down. But, that was going, that was the relationship. It wasn't, they were just business partners, but not an amicable relationship. It was the Deseret News. A hedge fund isn't going to stay in for very long. They were clearly harvesting their assets all over the country, and one of the ways they harvested their assets here was to sell the Tribune, more or less, to the Deseret News for $25 million. The hedge fund had rejected an offer from Huntsman Singleton for about $13 million, and basically the Tribune was worth more dead than alive to the hedge fund, and that's why we ended up with that JOA. So, it's just nothing is simple with this JOA because, and the answer to your question isn't simple either because they were business partners. Yeah.
I heard the flow of advertising dollars away from the Tribune. They started keeping records differently. Like the church news became part of the circulation numbers of the news, but the Tribune circulation of the newspaper was way bigger. So can you say something about that?
Yeah, the Tribune, it historically has been responsible for 60% of the circulation of the two newspapers combined circulation. The Deseret News launched something they call the National Edition a couple of years ago, which I consider advertorial. It's not a revenue-producing operation. They send it all over the country, but they've added it to their, kind of their circulation numbers and, goose their numbers that way. But generally, it's safe to say that the Tribune is still responsible for 60% of the combined circulation. But newspapers were supported historically with the subscriber advertiser model, with advertisers generally subsidizing the operation. That's collapsed everywhere, not just in Salt Lake. The advertisers are not subsidized, they're not buying newspaper ads anymore. They're expensive, and they don't reach the demographic that they're trying to reach, which is you guys, kind of, young people. And so, that revenue source is in free fall.
So they don't buy it on their web pages?
Well, digital advertising is growing, but it isn't even close, not even a fraction of covering the costs or covering the losses that come from the print advertising decline. So, there are young ears in here, so I'm not going to show the John Oliver piece, but he did a really great explainer a few months ago on newspapers and the challenges they face, and I would recommend that you watch John Oliver's piece on that. It's great. It's a great explainer. Way better.